And we're here.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, all. Welcome to Wednesday Night Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter, and we've been having a pretty solid week so far.
I have fairy hair.
Jen has fairy hair.
I have fairy hair.
I don't.
Look at it. Look, I have fairy hair.
Jen's a little too happy.
Oh my God, I got
so
fairy
simple.
hair. And by the way, after this nice girl, Megan, puts the fairy hair in, she asked me, would you like fairy dust? And I looked at him like, well, of course I want fairy dust. Like, who would get fairy hair and not have fairy dust? Like, makes no sense whatsoever. And a woman pointed out that we wouldn't be friends with anybody who wouldn't want fairy dust. And that's very true.
Well,
I couldn't be friends with anybody. But look, it's all shiny. Look at it. I got fairy hair. So excited. And it's purpley fairy hair.
Is that really why you're excited? Or are you more excited about our guest that's coming?
I am excited about our guest, but I do like seeing myself with fairy hair.
Well, I don't have it.
No, you don't. And it was
we definitely look
to
like
you.
all like really professional this evening. So
no, I think I look very professional.
Absolutely. Well, I know I said that.
I thought you were being sarcastic.
Our outfit are a little. Yeah. Well, we had to get really professional for a very professional conversation because, as you know, we have certain what we call resident guests, ones that basically are allowed to come on whenever they want.
Our favorite people.
And of course, what better time to bring on our good friend Steve Grumbine than at a time when we're getting a lot of disinformation. See, when the liberals in the corporate media bubble like to talk about disinformation, they're just talking about stuff that isn't actually relevant.
Wait, you mean how you're going to pay for it, people?
Oh, things like that,
like the student loan problem. How we can't afford. We cannot do that. We cannot cancel student loans. Those are private companies. How are we going to do that?
How will Wall Street ever survive if we don't allow them to subjugate average working people?
I'm trying to pack a ball. Here's the thing, is that even if Joe was right, let's say hypothetically he couldn't, like there was a rule where he couldn't. Why don't you rant after we get Steve to come? I'm just saying, then my answer would be, and Steve is going to confirm this. This is why I'm saying it. Because let's say hypothetically he couldn't. You're not authorized to cancel private student loan debt. I'd say, okay, then just pay it. That would be don't cancel it. Just have him pay it, and then it would be gone.
From Real Progress, you know him, you love him. He's one of the very best. Steve Grumbine, welcome back to Generational Change.
Hey, folks. You like my banner? Debt and student. There's the little diploma that way.
Well, the diploma and
it's very looming.
Oh, thank you, TM. My
it's
goodness,
not as cool as fairy hair.
What I was trying to do, but
it's not as cool as fairy hair. Do you see it?
Uh-huh. Okay. It's great. I like it.
So Jen has been making some really solid connections, I would say, in the area, and people that just kind of need to be awakened. And more or less, in the simplest terms, your role, your job, as you've been playing over the past several years, is to wake people up to the realities of sort of the difference between something as simple as micro and macroeconomics. And when people talk about economics in a way that they are just so devoid of the realities of where we are and what we're capable of doing. Like you said, no one ever blinks an eye when it comes to how much money we can spend on war. But when it comes to actual things that will help working people in this country, nothing to be said.
So let's talk about what we were just talking about with the student loans, because obviously that's the recent thing that happened where Joe had to backtrack on his overly generous $10,000 means-tested payments or means-tested cancellation. And now we're backtracking from that because the private loans, apparently, Steve, I don't know if you know this, he doesn't have the authority to forgive those.
That's true. Yep.
No, it's not true.
Well, hold on. Let's talk about this for a second, okay?
Right.
So the federal government, okay, has backstopped all Fed loan servicing. So I guess it was in the Obama era. There was American Education Services, AES, and then there was FIA, the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, just using this as one example. Within the FIA structure, there was Fed loans, which Obama said, that's all we're going to do going forward. No more private alt loans. They called them alt loans at the time. No more alt loans. And so all that you really had were these federal loans. And so by the government backstopping these federal loans, knowing full well that the money had already been paid to the institution, right? The money had already been paid to the institution. This money came from the federal government and was serviced, the loan servicing. In other words, like customer relationship management software with somebody sitting there on a desk saying, how can I help you, is handled by FIA. But the loan was backstopped by the federal government. So in that federal loan servicing space, the FLS space, the federal government owns that debt. Okay. The Fed loan servicing get a percentage of the debt that they collect as their payment. Okay. So the money is already spent to the institutions. That's the payment. There's no new money created for any of this, for the Fed loans, that is. Okay.
Right.
So within that space, that's a law. And as a law, the executive branch can execute said law. That's how we've gotten away with not prosecuting marijuana, given the fact that the federal government it's still illegal, but it has been largely turned into the executive orders, if you will. The execution of those laws is largely up to the president on how to handle them. When it comes to the private loans, that's actually private banks that the federal government does not own those loans. And so therefore cannot control, because the federal government didn't put that money out there. So this is the divisor. It's always been the divisor. I was wondering how that was going to play out. I was scratching my head because, see, here's the thing. Biden has no budget authorization to spend new money. He can only choose not to enforce a law. He can choose how to enforce a law. So within that space, the alt loans, or those private loans, they are to a private place. In order for those loans to be wiped out, it would require an act of Congress, Article 1, Section 8, that would require spending new money to pay them off or whatever. But let me be crystal clear, though, okay? If Biden was to eliminate all federal loans by his decree, by executive order, perfectly legitimate thing to do. Every penny of it he could wipe out without spending a single penny. Okay, not a single nickel would need be spent to do this. Those Fed loan servicing companies, hey, we're not doing federal loans anymore. School's free. Oh, okay. So that's that. Or, if they want to do graduate school or they want to do whatever, right? But the point is that he could literally do that with executive order. And that's what the Debt Collective was pushing. They wrote an executive order for him that showed him exactly how to do it, step by step, exactly how to do it. He didn't follow that executive order, needless to say. Had he done that, he would have been in good shape, but he did not do that. So, I mean, it's one of those things where people think somehow or another we have to spend or print money or do some other bullshit. All that it would be, literally, is status quo. It's literally status quo, that we haven't paid these debts in 3 years. Nothing happened at all. So there's absolutely nothing. There would be nothing inflationary about it, because we're not that this creates inflation anyway, but we're not creating new money. So you can't make the ridiculous statements Republicans and LOL libertarians do about, oh, the printing money is creating inflation. You can't get away with that lie, because the money's already been spent. It's already in the economy. I guarantee you those loan servicing groups or whoever was receiving that money have already bought their Porsche. They've already bought their vacation. They've already done whatever they're doing with the money. Money's already circulating. So there's nothing there that's inflationary in any way, shape, or form. And that really is, to me, it's one of the most grotesque lies that libertarians and right-wing Republicans and Democrats tell each other, is this idea that they're printing money, it's causing inflation. It's a lethal lie, and it's probably the thing that stood between us and total debt cancellation to begin with.
Well, I don't think there's enough of an emphasis regarding our current president and the fact that the Democratic Party, as it stands today, is completely captured by Wall Street and Silicon Valley. And that is the only reason why this is not being talked about the way that it needs to be. This whole idea of, well, the GOP is going to sue us in court, and it looks like they're going to win. They're not even trying to fight it. There is not even an attempt to fight it, even though the chief executive has legal standing to cancel all debt. It's not just student debt. He could cancel medical debt tomorrow, which is that's even more insane, that there's student debt.
He could not cancel medical debt tomorrow, not with an executive order. That's the thing. The U.S. government doesn't hold that debt. That debt is held by the private institutions, etc. They could, however, write a bill, Congress then, to spend that money and take care of it. So this is where we got to be really kind of locked in on the steps on what goes where. So in my opinion, we should eliminate medical debt, but that would require a Congress that actually gave a shit, right? And you nailed it. The Democrats are completely captured. I don't know why we don't stay on this subject constantly so people stop getting that like Lucy and Charlie Brown moment over and over again. This is not like the vote blues will tend to come to you and try and make you like completely forget everything you know. They'll try to make you just flush your brain of truth so that you can somehow or another get back in the hole and say, look at vote blue, vote blue, vote blue. It's like, vote blue. and I think it's very dangerous because of that, and because of the ignorance of all the finance and monetary operations, you end up voting blue and you end up getting more of the same shit sandwich. Because see, here's the thing. If they don't know the stuff we're talking about here, and I'm telling you, most of them don't, especially new. You think about it, Jen, when you were running for office, before you met me and before we started talking the way we talk, you'd have been out there ARPing, the same nonsense about economics that every candidate does. You know what I mean?
Well, except for that I had followed you before I knew you, and I was watching. So by the time I was running, I was not stupid.
No, but you get my point, though. Yes, the average person is running for office, and they're they're up against a million things, right? I look at the system and I say to myself, we are always going to be in a wash, rinse, repeat cycle until we stop making this optional, until we stop acting like this is some silly accounting thingy. It only happens to be the single silliest accounting thingy that blocks everything that we want to do. So it ends up being the most important thing. It's more important than climate crisis. Why? Because we can't achieve the stuff we need to do with climate crisis without a government putting those wheels in motion. Right. We can do all these nice, hey, I've stopped eating meat. Did it change? Nope. Shit. I started riding my bicycle. Did it change it? Nope. Shit. I started recycling. Did it change it? Nope. Shit. We need big, bold action. And the only way you have big, bold action is to understand you got big, bold dollars that can be spent into existence to do big, bold things, like eradicate all student debt, like literally make college for free, and not just up to bachelor's degree at a state school. You could do it for everything, all the way up the food chain. Just make education a national investment. Make it an investment in the future. And if people leave the country and go to their countries, consider it an investment in world, because the world spins, right? The whole environment, it's like the air didn't stay locked in. Oh, nope, I only go with that one. It goes, it moves. And so we're all on this rock together. There's no reason to think nationalistically. We need to think globally still. Act local, think global kind of thing. And quite frankly, we can do all of those things. And this student loan thing is a great way of elevating and showing, number one, it doesn't require any new money. It's already paid. It's just a matter of saying, we're not going to collect the debt. Michael Hudson and Steve Keen talk about how every 25 years back in the day, they used to always have a debt jubilee. Every generation, they had a debt jubilee. When's the last time you heard of a debt jubilee happening in this lifetime? I haven't.
Never heard of one.
I'm the old one. You're what, 35, and he's like 28, and I'm like, 53 up here. So I know in my long years,
you're just sweet talking me, Steve.
I know in all my long years, I've never seen anything remotely like it, because it brings to mind, and I think, Peter, you might relate to this more so than anyone because of some of the libertarian stuff that you've been around. When you consider that we are trapped in a do-nothing Congress, when you consider that we're trapped in a government that is literally doing nothing for us, after a while, you got to ask yourself, how is it even possible that it could be that feckless? How could it be that? Because libertarians they hate the government. They want it so small they can drown it in a bathtub. So the idea is, what about this is so bad? Why is it that they won't do it? You got to start saying, well, who are they really serving, and why are they serving? What is the reason they won't do these things? It's not just greed. greed is an easy thing, but the government creates money out of thin air and it spends it into existence with interest rate hikes. That's how the rich are getting super rich right now, with interest rate hikes. How do you do this? Well, the bottom line is that our government isn't there to serve us. It's not there to, it's intended to make life harder on us, which is why they're disciplining us with layoffs, creating a global recession right now, etc. So you've got to ask yourself, really, really, really do your scientific thinking and say, what is the government here for? And you realize ultimately government is here for private property. It's here to defend business. It's here to give the business community and the elites everything they need and to protect them from us. That's it. It's not there to enhance our lives, to make our lives better. It's there to make sure that they can live the best life they want, and we just kind of suffer with the crumbs. It's Elysium all over again. And I think that that's the exclamation point here.
I was just going to say, I think it's the same thing. Like when we talk about law enforcement, people think they're there to protect and serve. I'm like, no, they're there to protect wealthy people's property. They've always been there to protect, starting with their slaves and continuing now to whatever property they have. That's what they're there for. They're not there to make sure that everything is good for us.
Not at all. Not at all.
What do you think would happen if this circumstance was being played out in a Sanders administration right now? What do you think Bernie would do?
What would Bernie do? WWBD.
He'd probably have a town hall about it. My hope and dreams would be that Bernie would take the people that wrote all the stuff about student debt elimination and would have his economic advisor, Stephanie Kelton, come up and would tell the truth. I think Bernie, I'm disappointed in Bernie, but I think Bernie's take on this is that we're not ready for what needs to be done yet. The people aren't ready. We're not ready. And so he's just trying to do what a lot of people are doing. People like Sarah Nelson and others who are high up in unions, but very much toe the vote blue line. And the reason they say on the back end is because we need to buy time to get our unions organized again. We need to buy time without having Republicans writing laws to strip away our ability to organize and so forth. So to them, that's really it. And Bernie sees us and sees the people and realizes most of them can't get it through their head that the country creates the money. So how could it possibly be broke? They can't get that simple thing through their heads. And they can't understand Article 1, Section 8, which gives power of the purse to Congress. They can't understand that the president executes the laws. They don't put these things in proper context. So it's always just like hair on fire, flailing about, shooting all over the place. We've got to condense that and focus it. And Bernie, I think, would unfortunately be radically practical and recognize the average person doesn't understand this stuff. And he would go, we got to tax the millionaires. We got to tax the billionaires. He'd still say what he's been saying for the last 40 years.
You had to do this. You had to do that.
Did I bring him out? Yes, I did.
Look, unfortunately, no, look, there is only one person here that could possibly do, well, listen, Jen, I like your hair.
Isn't that pretty?
Steve, look, if I was president right now, instead of my good friend Joe,
he's not your friend.
I would have done more than a town hall. I would have told the GOP to shove it up their ass.
Yeah, that's what you would do. You know, the fact that you still think Joe is your friend.
And we absolutely would be able to cancel student debt. There is no question.
Hold the phone here.
The president has the legal authority.
Joe is nobody's friend.
No, we would cancel student debt. That's what we would do.
Joe is nobody's friend.
Joe is my friend. I don't have a lot of friends on Capitol Hill. Can you give me a break and let me have one? They don't like me over there because I like to tell the truth.
I think it's because you're cranky.
I am not cranky.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh!
There went my studio too all at once.
I don't like that man.
You can't make it up. You try and do something off script and what happens?
It's all good.
Donald Trump cannot be president again. Unfortunately, I think it might happen.
No, you're going to have Ron DeSantis is who you're having.
Oh, look, things are not good now. And
sorry about that. I tried to go off script, but there went my studio.
Is that what happens?
That literally is what happened. So Steve, give me 1 second. I'm going to hide my camera momentarily.
All right, it's all good.
Keep talking, though. I can still talk.
Steve, remember that you're doing a great job. You're explaining to the American people exactly what macroeconomics is versus microeconomics. It's very important stuff. And unfortunately, the American people are still not getting it. They think that we have money for war, but we don't have money to help the average citizen. That has got to change. You're doing a good job. Just wanted to clarify, if I was president, I would have canceled all of that student debt, not $10,000 in a means tested. We would have done it for everybody, and that's the way it needs to be. So good to see you, Jen.
Good to see you, Bernie.
Thanks, Bernie. Appreciate it. And I think Grumbine's back now. Sorry about that. Total meltdown with him.
You're getting a little crazy over there.
But do you feel that
I wasn't anticipating bringing out Trump.
Well, totally. There's only one Trump here, and
Oh my God!
But do you kind of feel like the American people there's like enough people right now? Oh, and before we continue, let me just say, first of all, Double K, thank you very much for your support. Really means a lot.
Yeah.
Anytime Steve, you're on, we get $20 from Double K. So I think we're going to have you fairly consistently. I hope you understand.
So funny. And Kayla, thank you. Also fan.
Kayla, thank you. Yes, we can absolutely have Angelica come back on. She is a excellent candidate running in California.
We had her.
Yes, we have.
She was lovely.
Yeah. Well, you like to say it.
I
yes.
do.
But I kind of get the impression right now that the American people are just kind of waking up and again,
they definitely are.
Little by little, every day. But I kind of think they see that the fact that the president didn't even attempt, even slightly, to push back on this completely frivolous lawsuit, we all know that. But the fact that this is the parliamentarian all over again. It's the same thing. Oh, we really wanted to cancel that student debt, but they're gonna sue us in court. So I guess we can't give it to you anymore.
This is who we are supporting for 24. We think go with the people with the most power, and that's obviously who has the most power. So that's
where's Cinema? I thought, is she going to be like the Secretary of State?
Well, she could be. I just thought, it just looked too funny not to use parliamentarian, and I don't know her name, by the way, which just makes it all the more funny to me.
Double K, did you do 2 donations specifically because it's got double in the name? I don't see Double Jackson, but whatever it is, thank you very, very much.
Very appreciated.
Yes.
But again, I just think if he is just going to literally roll over and die, how do you think the midterms are going to go in the last month when everything gets attached to Joe's ass and everyone's going to be thinking, this isn't so good?
Let me tell you what they're counting on. They're counting on you remembering the Roe v. Wade.
Thank you.
Thing.
I've been saying that the whole time.
But that's dangerous.
On women. They're counting on women.
Yeah.
100% saying, I don't care about anything else.
Anything else.
This is it. And you know what? It's I'm a dude. I can't really speak to it, Jen.
No,
I know you have
valid. It's valid.
But, yeah. And so, who am I to say but that's what they're counting on, right?
Oh, yeah.
They're counting on 100% allegiance to that. And you know what? I mean, here's what sucks. The Democrats could be the good guys.
I know.
Everybody already gives them the worthless benefit of the doubt, no matter what. No matter what. It's like, I know they're corrupt, but just vote blue, please. Just vote blue. I don't care. Just vote blue. I'm telling you, the GOP has never done any, and it's like, I get it. So why don't we try a third option? And it's not a third party. It's recognizing that those parties right there control the elections. They control the electoral college. They control the media. They control pretty much everything. They've got their hooks in the chambers of commerce. They got their hooks into schools. They got their hooks into everything. To try to create a third party and think all that a party does is elect people is completely foolish. You've got to be in these places. You've got to have people in those places. You've got to have the infrastructure, the skeletal structure, the scaffolding, all those connections throughout that get things done, even though that's what's also keeping us back is that very institutionalized structure. The point is we don't have time, and we're not remotely organized to do something like that. Fair, right? So yeah, I know it's baffling, but we are not.
We can't get out of our own way.
We can't get out of our own way to take a dump, man.
No, I was just talking about this tonight. Like, people want me to hate on the Republicans. Like, you hate on the Democrats. I'm like, I can't get to the Republicans. Like, we cannot get. I have to fix my own house first. I can't be worrying about them when we're not offering anything better, and people are not grasping this.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I think of it like this. The Republicans never told me, ever.
Yeah.
They have never once told me that they're pushing a Green New Deal. They have never once told me that they're looking for a job guarantee. They have never once told me they're looking to make college free. They've never once told me they're looking to provide, housing as a right, healthcare as a right, education as a right. They've never said anything like that. They've always been upfront and said, fuck you, find a way to figure it out. They've always been rugged. We're rugged individualists. We don't want handouts. So they've always been who they are. There's no need to pretend. So I'm not asking them to be my champion for a Green New Deal. These fools are saying it because they authored the goddamn bill and then they don't fight for it.
Right.
They don't do anything with it. And so to me, anybody that doesn't acknowledge this is not a serious person and should be disregarded, quite frankly, in terms of advice and listening to them, because it's not a matter of not voting blue or voting red or anything else. It's a matter of be what you say you are. Be real. If you're not going to deliver, don't expect me to deliver, because I get nothing out of this other than you voted for him. Look, I mean, every time Joe Biden does something, every Biden voter needs to own his action. Need to own the actions about the pipeline, the Nord Stream 2. They need to own the decisions about expanding NATO. They need to own the decisions of Biden celebrating $1 trillion in deficit reduction. They need to own all the successes Biden's so proud of. They need to own that he's literally bringing about a global recession. They need to own these things, because that's what your vote is. You voted for him. You own the outcomes. You own their behavior. You are part of his thing. There is no benign vote. I voted strategically. No, you put the man in office. He did this stuff. That's on you. Period. There's no getting around it.
I think the evolution over the last decade, particularly since the Great Awakening, as I like to put it, which was the summer of 2015, when Bernie and Trump really woke up a sleeping giant. It's hard to believe that it's 7 years later already, but over the course of that time, there really has been this sort of consensus of more and more people are starting to find their way in. One of the things that I kind of, it was almost like an epiphany recently, but even here locally, and you're thinking, Jen is so much more palatable than a Wasserman Schultz, but the truth is,
you sweet talker.
Oh yeah, well. But my point is,
low bar.
These a lot of people who are in the political arena, the next evolution is recognizing just how small your bubble really is, because most people don't know about this stuff. Most people do not care about this stuff, and as Jen always likes to point out, most of them don't have a chance to care because life is too tough to begin with, and they're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So trying to get them to understand
on purpose. Well, that's why we can keep everybody completely disengaged when they're working 3 jobs to live. That is why most people do not know who their congressperson is. Most people do not know where they would even vote if they were. Most people don't know whether or not they are registered to vote. And of those people, of the people that are, let's say, thinking about it, we get 11% voter turnout? We had 11% voter turnout.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That's a primary, but it's still low.
I mean, the primaries are more important than generals. That's the other.
Well, hold on. Let's start there. Let's start right there. For president, for sure. I know you all know this because you guys are down there in Florida. I know you, Jen, talked to Jared Beck in the past, or at least know Jared Beck and remember the Becks who took the court case about the DNC rigging through, and it got thrown out eventually. But Bruce Spiva, who was the DNC lawyer, fought tooth and nail to say we have no responsibility whatsoever to provide you with a primary, much less a fair primary. And no, you don't have any reasonable expectation that your donations to Bernie Sanders were going to Bernie Sanders to help get him elected. You had no right to believe that. It's all for the Democrat. The Democrats will take that money that you donated to Bernie and it will use it however it wants. And that was said in court. They're a private corporation. They have no responsibility. There is no such thing as a Democrat either. There is only you vote for a Democrat, but there is no such thing as a Democrat. And I couldn't believe it, but that's the deal. So if you flush that out of your mind, if you can flush that out of your mind and still believe that we're fighting to save democracy, well, let's all trip on that mescaline together.
The
Okay.
most undemocratic thing we have in the political arena today is not the GOP's voter suppressive tactics. It's the fact that one major political party has a thing called super delegates, which basically says there is no democratic process. If we have to rig it, which they did, they will.
Guys, go back and look up when Debbie was interviewed about this. Debbie was actually interviewed about the use of superdelegates. I swear, I can't remember where it was or what the interview was.
She was interviewed on CNN.
Okay, but they
specifically asked her, what is the purpose of having superdelegates?
Please watch her answer.
And that is so that we don't have to deal with these non-corporate candidates breaking through.
Basically, what she said was, because if we don't have superdelegates, then we'll have to do what the people want. That was the gist of, and she said it, but like that was basically what it was. I swear, guys, you have to look it up. It was, you say it was CNN?
Yeah.
I don't remember where it was, but she really just like mask off, man. She's like, because if we don't have superdelegates, then the people will get their way.
She said something that she really shouldn't have said.
It was great.
But that's what, well, we always like to say in the political sphere, Debbie is the gift that keeps on giving.
Whenever she opens her mouth, it's glorious.
I want to take a step back for something, because this plays into this larger conversation. The idea that we're preventing fascism, right? This idea, right? First of all, because of the nature of our country, the idea of president being a strongman dictator is largely impossible. Just like it's impossible in Italy, where Meloni, who represents a coalition government of right-wingers, is so stifled by the parliamentary process that she'll never be able to do anything radical, okay?
Right.
Not the way it's set up. In this country, we don't have any potential unless literally we have a coup. Unless we have a coup. That's a totally different ball of cheese. That's not our government today. So, but when you think about what is fascism, fascism is the merger of corporation and state. And when you have that, without it being public owned, it's still private, but the relationship of the public-private partnerships, all this stuff, this is fascism. We always think of it like Hitler and literally throwing the Jews and the Auschwitz and stuff like that, which is horrible, but that is not the definition of fascism. That is absolutely maniacal and insane behavior, but that is not what we're talking about here. In fact, I just found out, and this is something that I'm like shocked I didn't know, but fascism is a uniquely Italian thing. Italy created fascio, right? And so fascism is an Italian thing, came around with Mussolini, okay? And the fact is that we already have a proto-fascist state. We don't have the king dictator at the top, but we have the complete merger of corporation and state right now. And that is not, you're not preventing fascism, my friends, by voting Democrat or whatever. All you're doing is saying, hey, I like their brand of fascism better than their brand of fascism. It's still a proto-fascist state. And so when you understand this thing, this is why whenever I talk about neoliberalism, I talk about mass privatization. That is a core tenet of fascism. And if you're saying I'm voting Democrat to prevent fascism,
right?
I'm just like, why am I having this conversation?
Because they don't understand. They don't understand. We had Tom Hartman on recently for his new book, Hidden History of Neoliberalism in America. And we've covered this quite a bit lately. And it really is, there is a direct parallel correlation between neoliberalism to fascism. So it's the same, like you're going in that direction. Okay. Like it almost like can't control itself. And the only thing that can control that is the socialism balance. It's like you're seeing a populist uprising. So you're either going to have it on the left or the right. And I'm not talking the political party left and right in this country. I'm talking the actual left and right. So like, if you're having that uprising, people were better off with the left. And the thing is, like, we have the fascism. We don't quite have the authoritarian aspect yet, but that's all that's missing. And I don't think people realize how easy that would be to happen.
Absolutely.
But I can't stand hyperbolically when they say everybody's a fascist. It's really annoying.
Right. Yes, it is. I think the other thing that's really challenging here is this. If you think about, let's make public university a nationalized thing, hypothetically, just for our discussion, because it's about student loan, right? So the entire education system is now nationalized. It's a nonprofit entity that is funded entirely by the federal government. They could charge what they want. We're not here to deny them their wages or whatever it is that they've determined. But the fact is that we as people have a right to freedom to educate ourselves. It's the difference between who pays. It's not a difference of where it lies. And so whenever the federal government creates an agency or creates an institution or creates a law, this is a way of the federal government servicing us as people, allowing us to have a better life. It doesn't require a tax dollar to do that. We are not responsible for building institutions. Our federal government that creates currency and has our best interest, if it does have our best interest, creates those public purpose entities. Okay. So as we look at this, what happens to the profit motive? All of a sudden it goes away. So all of a sudden big business is less interested in controlling this thing, and it kind of moves on to something else, because within this thing, if big business stops, now all of a sudden people, the thinkers, the brilliant teachers, the minds that are out there studying things that are considered edgy and out of the orthodox, suddenly can be taught without the taint of business saying, well, that's not doing us any good, right? So I think it's important to think about that with healthcare too. It's not a matter of necessarily creating government hospitals. It's about government absolutely funding these things so that they're a right to us.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we don't have to pay for them, because taxes literally don't fund any of the spending. Not at all. Not a penny of it. Not a nickel of it. Not a hay penny. Nothing. It's nothing. The government spends the money freely. So all these things we could do. Every last one of them we could do.
Here's the quote.
So my guy Mark Fabian, I just want to make it clear that fascism is a totally different thing than what's being said. Bigotry, racism, authoritarianism, all that stuff, fine. Okay. But what you must understand, and this is the hardest thing for lefties, or not even lefties, I think get it. It's the centrist, the squishy center that doesn't get it. The reason why the people flock to Trump is because they like the idea of somebody confident, seeming capable, even if they're not, and they can point to his business and say, hey, see, this guy knows the shit. They want somebody that walks into the bar that they can walk in behind. The bully, they want them to walk in because they are tired of getting kicked too. They're tired of getting kicked around. And so they want that strong man. And when we trot up a corpse and a cop and Biden and Kamala, that rubs every bit of their sensibilities completely the wrong way. Feckless, stuttering, useless, completely rich and bourgeois and not in any way connected to the people. Suddenly it makes a Donald Trump look remarkably competent. Suddenly it's like,
well, I'm totally competent. I'm the smartest person in the room, and you totally know it.
I think that, we have a tendency. We actually had a really good interview with an author that wrote a book called Corruptible. And one of the things we talked about is sort of like, as people, we still use that primate monkey brain aspect of us to choose our leadership. Like we still have this might makes right. We still support that almost instinctively, even though the times we don't need the monkey who can beat off the wolves, right? Like we don't need that anymore. We need somebody, with more brains, but we're still voting for that leader.
Right. So somebody says, I think this is really important. Dirtbag Leftist says, how many times did Trump declare bankruptcy? He's not a successful business person.
Correct.
Nobody is looking at his balance sheets. They don't care. He exudes confidence. This is the problem. This is the problem. It's Biden's fecklessness is something that it's like shaking hands with somebody. When you do it, their hands just melts like butter. It's like, like you just instantly like, I'm not sure about that handshake there. Right. And this goes back like to childhood. Your dad taught you, everybody taught you. And that's what Biden's behavior is like compared to Trump.
Yeah.
I hated Trump. I didn't vote for Trump. I wouldn't vote for Trump the same. I am a true lefty, and Trump doesn't serve any value for me whatsoever. Right. But being able to explain what the right looks for, right? Being able to explain what the right is looking for, They're looking for that guy. They don't care if he's a bankrupt 100 times. He was smart enough to figure out how to use the system to do whatever.
I'm a really smart business.
But you
really
know
smart.
what though? But what do other people base it on? Like what, then you could say I look at the Democrats and I think they just tend to support very overwoke identity, somebody with a good identity card. So they're going to go with the touchy-feely over the, the more we want the guy with the machismo.
To not deal with the fundamental decimation of working people in this country. That's all this is about. That's all it's ever been about. Right. That's all it's ever going to be about. It's different than why we are are dealing with Ukraine, why we're dealing with Taiwan. Everything is always about money and power. And anyone who tells you otherwise is a liar and a grifter, and you're a fool if you buy it. At this point, I don't know what you're looking at because it's so transparently obvious.
So tired of the amount of people I see, like the Democrats with the Ukrainian flags out and stuff like that. And it's like, I just...
Where's the flag for Flint, Michigan? Where's the flag for Jackson, Mississippi? My God, did Jackson, Mississippi really talk about a story that died? You would think that story would last at least a week.
See, now I'll be called something like a Putin puppet.
The only reason why that story is even remotely still in the news is because of Brett Favre's attachment to it. That is it. If you took him out of the equation, that would have been yesterday's news before the week ended.
Scumbag.
Well, just think about this. Pakistan, right? Now, mind you, Pakistan is a nuclear power. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
There's a lot of people
they're a nuclear power,
right? Steve, there's a lot of people who think Armageddon is going to come from Pakistan and India. They think that's where it's going to happen.
Kashmir.
Well, let me add some credence to that, sadly, okay? So I interviewed a gentleman named Akhtar Afzal who writes, he's a PhD economist in Pakistan, and he writes for a publication called Dawn. It's the largest Pakistani English publication out there. And he wrote this great one called I don't remember the name of it right offhand, but it's something to the effect of basically the collapse of society in Pakistan or something to that effect. Yeah. And it talks about how because of the massive flooding that came in, ruined thousands upon thousands of miles of roads. These are people that don't have value-added manufacturing. They have nothing but roads, schools, plumbing, and maybe food production, and that's it. So these people have nothing. And now all of a sudden they're dealing with pestilence, they're dealing with flood damage, they're dealing with all kinds of horrible stuff. And what happens? What do we know when poverty hits? Okay. Poverty creates desperation. And when they start getting desperate, he recommended that it possibly could become like another Arab Spring. I, however, am looking at it slightly differently than that. And I'm saying because of climate crisis, the real opportunity for Hindus and Muslims who hate each other from India to Pakistan and the migration path required to stay out of harm's way is going to bring very, very much warring people together. And both are nuclear powers. Okay, Modi over there and over on the other side, I don't know his name, but you get the point. We've got this existential crisis going on. Well, I want people to understand this stuff because this is something that just faded out of the news entirely altogether. You never hear, in the beginning, you saw pictures, mass flooding. You saw the rapids running through the neighborhoods, the houses being blown away. Now you don't see anything, you don't hear nothing. And this is where economics kicks in. They don't have the means to produce things in their country.
Right.
So they have a horrible, what they call current account, which is the account between them and other countries. They largely have to import things to be able to survive. Okay. Well, they've lost 50% of their cotton production, which is a huge deal in Pakistan. And they've lost a bunch of other industry as well. So not only is their actual ability, which they have to export, all their stuff is basically gone. Their ability to provide for their people, gone. They're out there actually begging us to provide them with support, to actually donate, because in a country like Pakistan that doesn't have the productive capacity, they don't have the monetary sovereignty to be able to do it. They can buy anything for sale in their own currency, but they don't have shit for sale in their own currency in that country. They have to buy imports to be able to survive. And so this is going to drive inflation way up. The United States raising interest rates is raising it way up as well. And they are going to be a powder keg. So when you talk about the death and destruction and the real things, this all comes back to the United States because we have a hand in all this shit. Oh, yeah. And at the end of the day, because we can't even get something simple like student debt eliminated, we can't get these kind of things taken care of. And because we can't get these kinds of things taken care of, you see Puerto Rico suffering, you see Haiti suffering, hell, you see Flint, Michigan and Jackson suffering. You see it suffering constantly because they got to keep the facade up that they can't do anything for us. If they allowed us to believe that they could do something, they would do it. And if they did that, then we would know, and then we would make demands that they can do more. That's
we're demanding. We're making demands.
You know, maybe that's what, and I think a great place to conclude the conversation is, you know, maybe that's the legacy as it stands right now, especially of the Biden administration, when it came to the canceling of student debt. Maybe they really thought, wow, now they really think they're entitled to getting some stuff. And that's just how they look at it. They look at it as these masses are subjugated. We're going to keep it that way. And if they think for a second that they're actually of greater value than where they believe that they are to be, that's not going to be good for the bottom line. And when you are living in a oligarchic society, which we are, which is teetering on full-blown fascism in many ways, you know, there is this inflection point of where are we going to go? Where are the masses going to go? And right now, it's not looking good because a lot of them are flocking towards Trump and DeSantis. And if we don't get our act together, that's what 24 is going to be like. And it's only going to get worse. It's like all of these things are all happening at once. It's like total destruction. But hey, if that's what's going to happen, I just hope it's quick. That's all I can say.
Oh, we're having DeSantis people.
I want to raise something up. This is super important here. Two things. Number one, to stay in Pakistan momentarily, with all the flooding, cholera, malaria, right, all sorts of other things are happening to children right now. Children are dying out secondarily after the initial flood swept away people. I think there was like something like 1,500 deaths in the original thing. It's even more than that. Now people are starting to get sick from all the decay, right, and diseases that come from flooding. So there's that going on right now as well. But something I think that is really, really super, super important as we're looking at, you know, something like a DeSantis or any of these other people coming through into power, as we see that kind of thing happening, right? There is a reason why people are seeing them as an option, as a viable option.
Yeah.
And there's nothing they're saying that's viable at all. Nothing they're saying is useful at all. Everything is literally bigoted and hateful. Literally. I mean, literally, if you listen to the campaign ads here in Pennsylvania, listening to Doug Mastriano, you think you're listening to something straight out of like a movie, like Sin City kind of thing. I mean, it's like, what? Really?
He's a bad guy.
Yeah. So, but this is all the facade. This is all the front, right? We get caught up in politics, and I swear to God, I think it's like this childlike thinking that says, hey, I recognize, it's like you can almost see Cypher in the Matrix going, I know it's not steak,
but it tastes good.
Yeah.
Ignorance is bliss.
Ignorance is bliss. And I see a lot of people out there. It's like, I don't really want to have to, you know, learn theory. I don't really want to have to organize. I don't really want to have to be ungovernable and force the government to do my will. I think I'll just vote blue. And that's the dumbing down of society that we have dealt with. And quite clearly, you should see it. Democrats had the White House, had the Senate, and they had Congress. And they had tons of time to stack the court. They had Obama in office that could have had Ruth Bader Ginsburg step down. He did it to Bernie. He sure talked Bernie off the ledge, didn't he? He could have talked RBG out of there as well. And he didn't. And over again, they didn't codify Roe v. Wade. They didn't do it. Stop giving air cover to piss poor service. Stop pretending that this is somehow or another a valid expression of humanity. It's garbage. It's trash. And we're all suffering. I look at my son. I'm like, God, is there a way for me to live forever? so that I can take care of my autistic kid. Because all these vote blues are willing to just vote blue, and they don't care what comes of it. They don't care. They have not a fucking care in the world. As long as they can just vote blue, they're going to vote blue. And my kid, I got to live forever. And I've got to find a way to live forever to overcome the vote blue unwillingness to fight back. I've got to live forever to save my son from them. That's how
what
bad
I'm always
it is.
saying. No, it is. And that's what I'm always saying. Like, we need to get the Democrats to fight. And they're not going to do that so long as they're all very comfortable.
Well, that is, and again, the bottom line is Thomas Jefferson has one of the great quotes of all time, which is, when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. And that is what we do not have right now. The government does not fear the people. But if the government did fear the people, all of the changes that we seek would happen. That's not to say that electoral politics is not important. It absolutely is, and it absolutely matters. But at the end of the day, if you don't have an inside-outside strategy, you don't have anything.
You don't even have to scare them. You just have to interrupt their fancy dinners at fancy restaurants.
And that, unfortunately, is the missing component that we really have to seize on at this point. Because, again, there is this grassroots awakening that's happening right now, and we have to marry it properly. And that is the task at hand that we really have to work on. Steve, thank you as always.
Guys, check out all of Steve's stuff.
What are you working on?
Macro and Cheese Podcast.
Yes. Well, of course. Macro and Cheese Podcast. Anything else that you want to mention before you go, please, floor's yours for a minute. Go for it.
Yeah, the Rogue Scholar, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays on Real Progress in Action YouTube channel. Please come check me out. We also have the Rogue Scholar now on podcasts. So you can check it out on any podcast platform you're on. And then, of course, I am Tuesday nights. I do co-hosting with Jordan at Status Quo. And on Sundays typically it's 2 p.m., but whenever Colin can get the damn video edited. We've been doing some crazy stuff and having some fun.
Colin, we know you're watching right now.
No, we don't. But
awesome.
I really like that guy.
Yeah,
he's
great.
You know what? Like, to me, he's like a sweet boy.
Well,
we have so much fun putting Let's Get Ready to Grumble together, and that's on Sundays. We have tried to take it and make it fun. We've tried different mediums. You never know what's coming. So definitely check it out. And you obviously realprogressives.org. So thank you guys so much for having me on again. I love y'all.
Always a pleasure, brother. We'll see you soon.
All right. See ya. Bye-bye.
And just for point of reference, people, I've been on Macro and Cheese, and I was on Rogue Scholar. I'm probably like the dumbest person that's been on Rogue Scholar.
We should have our.
But I was on Rogue Scholar. I think it might have been like one of his first. I was either one of his first on that or on Macro and Cheese. Maybe on Rogue Scholar is like one of his first ones.
Well,
I'm not very scholarly.
Well, the night's not over yet, because we do have a wonderful guest we are about to bring into the studio.
This is Nashville, right?
This is one of your favorite places in the United States.
No, I've not been.
I have, and I can tell you that I really like Nashville.
Go. I'm in Asheville every summer, and I do want to go to Nashville, and I know I would love it. And also, I know because Dolly's there. Dolly lives there.
Yeah, well, you've got to go to. There's that. Well,
it's the Grand Ole Opry.
Well, Odessa will tell us, but there's this place. The town is slipping me right now. But there's the Dolly World, and there is the Titanic. There's the Titanic
and it's
Museum.
in Pigeon Forge, and I know exactly where that is, and that has nothing to do with where Odessa is. I think she's Nashville.
Well, yeah, but I still want to go to the. Titanic Museum. She is running for the U.S. Congress in Tennessee's 7th district, a blue oasis in the middle of a very red state, but a state that can really use a wonderful new congresswoman. Odessa Kelly, welcome to Generational Change.
What's going on, guys?
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
I like that you have all your signs in different colors. Like, I really like that. And, normally I don't think it's good to mix colors because it confuses people, but your name is consistent in each one enough that it's real. I think it's very cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, I dig it.
I appreciate that. So I just wanted to be different. So I like colors, and yeah, we got they're like blue Odessa team, yellow Odessa team. So it's been working.
No, I think it's awesome. I think, what is the scene, the Democrat scene in Nashville? Like, I really don't. I have no idea. Like, what does your incumbent look like? What's it like?
Well, the incumbent is horrible. He's a Trumpian, a racist, homophobic, most homophobic person we have. He's the person that said that trans was a clinical disease. He's the guy that runs off of being a veteran but doesn't take care of veterans. I mean, all the things, that the past gentleman was just talking about, for both sides. I think the same goes. That's why I was running against a Democrat before, because we have a lot of people, regardless of the hat they're wearing, they're not giving any type of support or impact to the communities that we need them to have on it.
Right. So the Democrat that was running was probably no different than the Republican that's sitting there.
Well, I ain't gonna do them like that.
But when we're talking about how this affects people's finances, when we're talking about how, forget just the personal and the disgusting nature of some of these people, but when we're talking about how this affects working class people, it really is 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Absolutely. And that's what it comes down to. It was so hard when, everyone went to Georgia, including us, to knock doors for Ossoff and Warnock. And then we were here trying to get people elected. People are like, what's the difference? My life does not change if it's Trump in office, versus Biden or whoever else has been in office, right? And that's a knock on the Democratic Party when you can't tell the difference between a Republican and a Democrat, because everything ditto, they do not do anything for us or for our party, yet, or for working class people, or they don't even do stuff for the people, a lot of the people who vote for them.
No, and they abuse their voters. Actually, the Republicans are much better to their voters than Democrats are to their people, like to their base. Republicans answer to their base. Democrats don't care about their base.
They forgot about their base. Majority of rural Tennessee voted Democratic because those are working class individuals. This state is a working class state.
Oh yes,
and now it's become a playground for the rich and greedy corporations and developers trying to take it over. We've had several governors stand on top of Hill and say, bring your corporations here. And, we got people who work damn near for free or slave prices. We still at $7.25.
And I often think that you only end up with a Senator Blackburn when you're basically just not trying. Like, you do not care enough to make the necessary efforts for working people, where you allow somebody of such lunacy to enter into the U.S. Senate. And that's a reflection, because again, I've been to Nashville a couple of times. I love Tennessee, but it's also a state that has been severely neglected politically. What made you decide to get into this? What was the impetus on your part to say, I'm going to go for it, I'm going to run for U.S. Congress to represent Nashville?
I think 2020 handed me my ass. To be very honest, I got into organizing because I was desperate to save my own life. I worked for Parks and Rec for close to 14 years. I was a city employee, got the master's degree, right? And got $70,000 of debt while I'm going on 10 years of working 2 jobs. Because I was working for the park system in the morning. I'm working at FedEx slinging boxes in a warehouse in the evening, right? I got 2 kids. I got bills, I got rent, I got a partner, all the shit that we have to deal with and everything. And it's like, this is not okay. Like, why? How was this? If I stay on this job that I love, and I was good at doing it, I could have retired, been the best damn Girl Scout leader that this country has ever seen. I love my job. Could have retired, been the best damn flag football and basketball coach at the community center. But I was living check to check. Like, what I'm gonna do? And I got this master's degree. If I stay on this job for 20 years, y'all, I might top out at $58K in Nashville. It's one of the fastest, for 10 years, one of the fastest growing cities in the country, And so not having people who could accurately tell my voice as a working class individual what was going on was not okay. I'm on the front lines of poverty. I see the school to prison pipeline, and what's going on. That led me to doing organizing work. And after 7 years of doing organizing work, I really had the first opportunity to see from a lens outside of Nashville. I thought the shit that was going, I'm sorry, stuff.
No. Oh, by all means. You
didn't hear Steve talking for the first half hour.
We're all good.
Oh, okay. Like, the things that were happening to me, I thought they was my problems, or they were specific to Nashville. You can just change the name of the city.
Oh, it's everywhere. South Florida is horrible. It's horrible. Actually, one of the things we were talking about with Steve was the student debt situation. And I know you were just saying you have a master's degree. So the amount of money that people are investing to get educated, they can't ever make that back. Right. Yeah. So this is a problem. And I have this thought that we should just change it and just call it pre-K through 16. And then the last 4 years, you can decide which type of thing you want to do. Like maybe you want to go to a trade school, or maybe you want to take out your portion and have some sort of entrepreneur thing. I don't know. But like, why don't we just call it pre-K through 16? And then these people will stop bitching about paying for people to go to college.
I love it. That's why we built a vocational career apprentice program.
Yeah.
In Nashville, just for that. I found that out the hard way.
Yeah.
I told you what was supposed to be the good part of my job, right? Yeah, the crux of my job ended up being passing out food boxes every day of the week. You know, we were connected to an elementary school. I was serving 300 to 400 families a week. And these weren't people who were just living in the project and don't have a job. Everybody's working. This whole shit about black people, brown people don't work. We've been working. Hell, we was brought to this country to work. We work. We don't get paid. No one is really getting paid what they should for the work we do, but everyone's working, right? Ended up passing out food boxes to people who I was in study groups with in college, because they became social workers, because they became teachers. People who decide to do like the things that are supposed to make this country great are struggling, you know? And after becoming that organizer that was doing really well on the ground and having a bunch of receipts, when 2020 hit, the world slowed down and it became an opportunity for every organizer, every activist out here. They know that this, like, ooh, people are listening now. Then you had George Floyd and you had all this other shit that was happening on that. Sis, by the time November hit, Thanksgiving morning was the first day I think I ever had 5 minutes to myself, you know, and I was thinking about all the things that we had done, not just me and Stand Up Nashville and moving all affordable housing here and getting a higher wage for stadium jobs, all the things that we've done that was little, it's inches, right? And the thing that we missed is that we never put ourselves in the positions of leadership to get the things across the finish line that we want to have happening. Every time people out here, y'all think President Biden for college loans, thank him, but you need to think about 10,000 activists out here and community organizers who've been like pushing this dominant narrative for 20 years, you know? And so I said, I didn't want to be the victim of saying, well, we did what we can. No, it's my damn country. So I'm gonna sit in the position of leadership and show a very different side of what I think a Democrat should look like.
Yeah, and you represent what I was just talking about recently, which I call the revolving door between organizers and politicians. That's what the revolving door we need. We don't need it between lobbyists and congressmen.
Right.
We need it between activists and congressmen. And that is a really good revolving door. We had Lana Dell wanted me to ask, and just make sure, wanted to recommend that you check out do some research on the job guarantee, because the federal government does deliberately create unemployment. Like they have to have a certain amount of unemployment to keep everybody like in their place. And so a lot of the people that were on I don't know if you knew who our previous guest was, Steve Grumbine, and he is a huge proponent and economic theorist. Modern monetary theory is the concept, and you should definitely check it out. And it's also a big support of the job guarantee versus saying a minimum wage, right? The job guarantee and the federal government has to pay whatever the living wage is. That'll automatically make everybody else have to compete, whatever. But the point is that a job guarantee is definitely, like, policy-wise, a really smart way to go. Like, so if you haven't looked into it, check it out.
Absolutely. I'm a big proponent of it as well. And he's absolutely right. I had cousins and a couple of friends y'all last year. Odessa, I'm gonna send you this reference code for Robinhood and Webull and all this so they could get their free crypto or whatever, right? I'm like, okay, sure, I'll sign up so you can get your stuff or whatever. And so then you have all these different things that start hitting you. And that's when I really started to learn about quantitative easing and tightening.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is the concept behind this? You know, so no, I'm just saying you're spot on with, like, we have to have the fact that we're structurally built to where we have to have some unemployment is insane.
Yeah. And you know, one of the reasons why we don't have more people like you or activists that run for office is you are a regular person, and most regular people are just struggling to survive right now.
Yes.
And to run for office, you really can't, like, it's a full-time job. People don't realize it. Now, I was very fortunate that I was able to do that without having to also be working a job. But regular people that we want to participate in things can't do that. So, and that's why I think most people don't pay attention to politics, because they're just struggling to live.
Shit, ditto. You know, like that's a part of the reason why I decided to run. We need to have people in the positions of leadership that got your back when you ain't paying attention. You know, like what you said, so many people are working a 9 to 5 and just trying to make it to the next day and living check to check.
Yeah.
They're putting people in positions out the trust and faith that when they can't pay attention, you still got their back. And that's exactly what is not happening. And Democrats and Republicans have been taking advantage of that and just getting richer and richer and richer, right? Which is why we got this debacle that we in now. Either side, they don't know what the hell to do. They don't know how to deal with Trump. Because Trump ignorant. He ain't no president. They know how to deal with presidents. They don't know how to deal with ignorant motherfuckers.
Will you ask?
Odessa, first of all, phenomenal website. Really did an amazing job.
He very much analyzes everybody's logos and websites. It's his thing, but yeah.
Well, you know, how would you say two things? How have the district lines changed with redistricting? And number two, how would you say the help has been regarding organizations like Justice Democrats, brand new Congress, which Shen was endorsed by, in terms of the assistance that they've provided for your campaign? So how much of the district has changed in terms of the lines? And then obviously the organizations, the non-corporate progressive organizations have assisted in being able to build your campaign into viability.
Yeah, and my answer's too long. I don't ever know.
Oh, go for it.
No.
All right, you know.
No,
so,
you're good.
All right, okay. So yeah, thank you for asking it. They gerrymandered the shit out of Tennessee. Nashville is a case study of gentrification more than anyone else in the country. You know, if we was a battleground state, it'd be on TV 24/7, right? How it affected, I was running against Congressman Jim Cooper before. He is a Blue Dog Democrat. He'd been in office since I was 10 months old. 10 months old, you know, I just turned 40, you know.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't want someone representing me who's always like the last person to do the right thing. He's part of that establishment class. He's part of their argument when we talk about people. Like, I don't feel the difference in things that are happening here, right? And as a Black woman in the South, I saw years of politicians coming to my mama and my grandmama's church, and you know how they do that two-hand handshake, right? You know, and so your grandparents think that, oh, Jesus vouched for him, so I'm gonna vouch for him.
Right.
Taking advantage of people.
Well, we could talk about pastors. That can be an entirely different conversation.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just, you know, and so linking it back to like what we don't do is we don't check people's actual voting records or how they vote against things or like the things that they do. We would have had healthcare a long time ago had he not been fighting in '92 to like stop it. You know, but anyway, with that said, they broke up Nashville because 30% of Nashville is Black, and they wanted to break the Black voice. And because like there's no vote that you can have in Nashville or a specific district unless it's statewide that you can win unless you win the Black vote in Nashville, Tennessee. The minority vote in Nashville was close to 46%. You know, so that's what they did. They directly wanted to silence Black voices with doing that. And how it's changed is I'm now having more fun because I'm running against dumbass Republican Mark Green. The fact that this man went to West Point should be embarrassed. It should be embarrassed that he went there. This man's a doctor. Come on, doctors.
Well, is he a real doctor or is he like a Jill Biden doctor? No, Dr. Oz is a real doctor.
Scary.
I think I don't know. I'm pretty sure he's a real doctor. And he put his claim to fame is that he was part of the troop, or I think is what you call it, the troop that caught Saddam Hussein. He literally wrote a book called A Night with Saddam. Like, I'm not gonna roast you for naming your book that, A Night with Saddam. It's ridiculous. And it's just full of lies. It's just full of lies. But anyway, like, this is the person I'm running against. Now, we in the South. Anybody know people in the South? Anyone can hear my voice? We are not afraid of butter, sugar, and grease. So you know.
Oh, I've had the redneck pancake at that joint in Vanderbilt University. So I'm very, very well aware.
Well, but then, you know, you're gonna run into somebody and might have need some insulin. The fact that he a doctor and you didn't put a cap on insulin, we're in the 7th district. You know how many good barbecue joints is rolling through here? He tripping, you know. This is a man who claims, eagle, support, American flag. He spirit, God, freedom. The three things they yell that shit all day long. Yeah, you didn't vote for the burn pit veterans. Veterans work too. You don't want to raise the minimum wage. All the things that we need. Over 50% of Tennesseans' debt is medical debt. I got family members going through that right now. Fucking medical debt.
That shouldn't even be afraid. Like, other countries, when they hear that, well, that, and also my other favorite one is student lunch debt is one of my personal favorites. We have that here. We have student lunch debt for the elementary school kids.
I think
that's actually a thing. Student lunch debt. I have a question from a friend who is actually the head of our Florida Progressive Caucus for our state. She wanted me to ask you, what are the policies that you see as urgent in Tennessee? Is the party backing or blocking you? And how receptive are the people there to progressive policy?
Thank you, whoever asked that question, because
Carolina,
because I almost got to answer the second part of your question. These two things go really well together. Shout out to Justice Democrats. Shout out to SEIU and all the CLC and labor unions here. I'm a proud member of SEIU, Local 205. Shout out to Collective PAC and all the work that they have done to help me get over that imposter syndrome. I'm an openly gay Black woman, pretty, but openly gay Black woman, right? Running in the South. And so sometimes, I like you said, working class individuals, I was 30 years old before I figured out who I was going to be, comfortable in my own skin, so I'm kind of late to this game. But I think that may help me too, because I have all the experience of what everyday regular people are going through. Back to the question, our state party, we have our first Black chair, Hendrell Remus. He's had some bumps along the way or whatever, but him and the staff that he's building, it's been extremely helpful. I'm part of the Tennessee Coordinated Campaign. I wish there were more candidates or more elected officials who would buy into it, because we all talk about how we want to move the state forward, but then we don't put all our feet forward to do the things that are needed. I've raised close to $1 million, y'all, close to $1 million on this campaign. And that's without taking $1 from any of these greedy ass corporations, right? The majority of the establishment Democrats here who will tell you they bundled for Obama and them, they just as racist as everybody else.
Thank you.
The truth about it too, right? If they don't pick you as their candidate, they don't want you, right?
Nope.
Yeah, and they don't answer phones, all these things, right? So they haven't given me any money either. Or let's see, that I bet my Act Blue ding now with a couple of $250, donations so they can say that they did, but they're not supporting in the way that they could, And so all this has been to people who can hear my voice. Shout out to you, grassroots people across this country, labor and union members and these type of PACs who've come together and been like, yo, we know you ain't got no money right now, but that's what we do. We bring capacity. Justice Democrats helped me raise close to $150,000 in the first 36 hours, right? Like that had never been done until that moment. I thought it was going to be like that every day. I got a rude awakening.
Okay, no, that's like Dan Marino thinking every year he'd be in the Super Bowl. No, it doesn't work like that.
But it should be. And I'm not being arrogant, but I know that I am the candidate that 99% of this country has been waiting on. And if I was anywhere else, I'd be raising $20 million every quarter, But in Tennessee, we got to build the building blocks to get there. Yes, part of our campaign is get me elected in November 8th so that we can do what we can to keep our country together and then start to shape it in the way that we think it should be shaped, But on November 9th, the infrastructure we building, 18 months from November 9th, we're going to get Marsha Blackburn's ass out of office, People ask me all the time, like, what are you going to do to codify Roe v. Wade? I was like, I'm going to go to every place I can and stomp to make sure that you get the senators that we actually need, because that sits on the Senate floor. I'm not going to be one of these politicians that lie to you about saying I'm going to do something, knowing that it's in the purview of someone else. So you can at least say, I tried it, knowing good and hell well that no one can hold you accountable for it. Nah. I'm going to be 435, that's pushing the political will of what we want to see happen every day.
No, I so appreciate that, because I feel the same way. I think part of your job, part of the job is in DC and pushing your little vote button and doing that whole nonsense. But when you're at home, your job is to be using your platform for your people and serving your people and being in the community. And that is the thing that is sorely missed by the majority of these employees of ours, who I call insubordinate. And it's very frustrating because, you know, you work for people. Would you be able to take money from another employer, do things against your current employer, and then still expect to get a pay raise? Like, what other business did we have that? What other, and they have insurance, they have healthcare, we don't have healthcare. Right. And we just keep electing these people. And they have no interest in serving us. None whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Odessa, please.
No, and I was going to say, you're absolutely right. You know, one of the things that easily over 90% of our elected officials at the federal level, in Congress or in the Senate, they had the resources to jump over any hurdles before they were born.
Yeah.
In their mother's womb, they was richer than me, right? I remember when Meghan Markle and them had their baby. I was like, that baby got better credit than me right now.
He had better credit than you before he was conceived.
Exactly. You know, and so that is the same concept. The majority of these people in Congress, they use it to hold on to their power so they can stay the 1%. And I'm not here for that. We're gonna change all of that. You know,
I really dig you. I so appreciate you. I feel like I'm very glad to meet you. I feel like you are definitely part of on my mission, and I always appreciate to find someone else on my mission that I see as part of the revolution.
Odessa, bring us home with the importance of collective organizing and checking your ego at the door, because in a lot of left spaces, as I'm sure you are aware, there are a lot of egos and a lot of people want a lot of credit for what's going on. We really need to be able to check our egos at the door and being able to cross-pollinate, as Jen likes to say. I always call
it cross-pollinating.
Building these relationships, building this non-corporate infrastructure is how we're going to get out of this hellhole that we're in right now. Please share your thoughts as we wind down. And guys, if you haven't already, as I alluded to not too long ago, it is an excellent website, odessaforcongress.com. Make sure you get over there. 1 month to go. Make sure that you are signed up for phone banking, text banking. If you are within not just Tennessee, but remember, Tennessee has the distinction of being the #1 state in the country that has the most surrounding states. 8 of them, that's landlocked. 8 of them to be exact. You could be in Atlanta. You could even be as far north as Chicago. But it is not that difficult of a trip to get to Nashville. And if you can lend a hand with this campaign, please do. The floor is yours. Please share your thoughts on the importance
like the key issues, like what's going on there.
Yeah, thank you for that. As far as collective organizing, you're exactly right on. When I said I had my ass handed to me, we all a part of that, you know, and that's because the same thing happening in so we gotta have campaign finance reform. You know, there's a little bucket of money and everyone gets to pull out of. So it's people like snatching at crumbs, which is what caused all this divisiveness. That, and you have a lot of people too who find their selves in whatever college text or class that is, and they don't actually live the life. So they're on this purity politics bullshit. And that's just, we're warped people. Like, we're flawed, you know, and part of us getting through that is everyone taking a breath and not operating out of trauma. Understand that the biggest health crisis we got is mental health. Mm-hmm. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if 200 years from now, when they study about us, they're gonna be like, everybody was crazy in that motherfucker, you know, because of how, in the type of society that we live in. You know, I want to build legislation that heals people. And someone said that was wild. That's wild. Really?
That's just crazy talk.
Crazy talk, right? Who wants to do that, you know?
Mean you think mental health should be included in healthcare? Because that's whack.
For everyone.
I know, it's crazy.
Everyone.
Absolutely.
That's included in, like, Republicans getting laid to get included because they need to chill the fuck out. Like, y'all tripping. But anyway, on top of that, the biggest issues that we have here in Tennessee is healthcare is one of the biggest things, right? We have denied over $1 billion in healthcare expansion because we use it as a political football. You know?
Same as us. As us.
You know, I think what you were kind of talking about earlier goes back to it. I think one of the biggest issues that's in that gray area is the apathy. In the South, we're soaked in traditions, you know? So it's not that people don't care. It's that people have been othered or stationed as though it's not their responsibility to, like, lean in, you know? And so I think that if we really start to change that, everything else changes. And we got a little glimpse of it in 2020. Three cycles before, we was losing races 25 points. You get every avenue to fucking vote. In 2020, we losing by 4 or 5 points. And thank you, everyone. Please lean in on our race. You know, I don't want to assume that we got it. We've been working our asses off, coming outdoors with us. Please donate. We got to raise about $150,000 because TV is fucking expensive.
Oh my God.
We're doing real TV. We're doing the digital and the streams and all that type of stuff. And I'm like, it's $50,000 to run a 30-second ad. They were like, at least, but we want to go tit for tat because the racist person I'm running against is a millionaire. He just gonna throw $1 million up and say she's a Bernie socialist. Thank you. But
I know, and you know what? Wear that proudly.
Yeah,
I've been called communist Karen.
Odessa, I just wanted to come on here and tell you how much I appreciate what you're doing in Tennessee. I happen to like Nashville. It's a great city. It's got a lot of great music.
I know.
And you are doing a wonderful job. And the GOP and the corporate Democrats that are trying to stand in your way of success, they're not going to stand in your way forever. So keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a wonderful job. I really appreciate you. Much love and respect.
Thank you, Bernie. I appreciate
it. Very method, right?
Yes. Like, follow me on IG and Twitter as well. I go hard. Odessa Kelly TN.
That's great.
ODSSA Kelly TN. And you'll see a lot of things that we do there. And let me give y'all flowers too. Thank y'all.
You are so welcome. And you know what? No matter what happens, seriously, your voice is very necessary. Like, whatever happens, we ran a very service-oriented campaign, and then after it was over, we still have that. So it was important to me to keep that snowball, that momentum going that you get, even win or lose. And you definitely have that. You have this leadership thing going. So whatever happens, keep it going. You know what I'm saying?
You are not a good candidate. You are a great.
You're a great candidate,
and that is a key distinction with a lot. And again, what you are doing alone, just the fact that you're willing to put yourself out there and run for the biggest local seat you can possibly run for, which is the U.S. Congress, the amount of slings and arrows that you are willing to take, because there's a lot of them. And when you are in deep red Tennessee and you are a woman of color and you're gay, forget it. You're catching hell that I don't think people even can begin to understand. And if you walk into the wrong neighborhood that is probably not in very friendly Franklin and places like that, they don't mess around in the Deep South. They really don't. So you have have my utmost respect.
Very thankful.
And I think that there needs to be this sort of consensus amongst the movement to really recognizing that, yes, we want to help as many people as we can, but when there is a bright, shining star, you have to run towards it.
Absolutely.
So just stick, whatever happens, keep going. Because you will get there for sure. Yeah. You'll definitely get there.
If people lean in, we could definitely win. So, and thank y'all. And what I was giving y'all flowers for is if many of us out here, they'll tell us that we're crazy for thinking the way that we do. So to have people like you who validate it, it's not just me. Thank y'all for what you do and keep doing.
You are so welcome.
All right, so we got you one donation so far this evening. I hope we're able to get you a few more if everybody's checking out. Colinello, thank you so much. Odessa, thank you so much for coming on.
We'll be following your race.
Make sure you get
when you win, then you're going to come back as a congressperson.
Hell yes. So, and let's just stay in touch.
Well, listen, we got Jamie McLeod through. We got Summer Lee through.
That's my girl.
Yep, there's always a handful. And everyone's like, this change is going to come and it's not going to happen. No. Every once in a while, every election cycle, there's a few that are going to break through. And the more that break through, the more you have these representatives. Again, this is why
we need them to be fighting for more people to come.
Y'all in Florida, right?
Yeah, we're in Broward County, right outside Florida.
I'm pulling for Val Demings, but tell what's my boy name? Maxwell
Frost.
Oh yeah.
Man, tell young homie we got him.
I'll text Maxwell. Let him know you said hello.
I like that kid. So tell him keep pushing, keep doing this thing. You're right. It's gonna take all of us across this country. So shout out to
Odessa
on the line. Thank y'all.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Have a great night. We'll be in touch.
Bye. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes. So now what do I say?
As you like to say,
she was lovely.
She
was lovely. Because you know why I say that. You know where it's from. You should know. We've been doing this for 2 years. Do you know where that's for? Why I say that?
No. Maybe I should.
You should. It's Barbra Streisand in The Way We Were.
Oh, God, no.
Don't you dare. And she goes up to Robert Redford and she fixes his hair and she said, "Your girl is lovely, Hubble. Your girl is lovely, Hubble."
I don't like Barbra Streisand.
I don't care. Okay? That's The Way We Were. You don't. And Robert Redford, I might add.
I like Robert
girl's
Redford.
Lovely, Hubble, and
I
she
like
fixes his hair, and
he's good, dude.
And this was when they had already not been together, and he already had a new girl. And that's what she was like saying, "Your girl is lovely." So anyway, that's what it's from. You should always have known that.
In approximately 11 days, is that what it is?
Yeah, no, you picked the wrong slide. So guys, on the 15th of October, so a week from Saturday, I'm going to be hosting, we are hosting, there you go.
I'm handy.
Sometimes you're handy, not handsy.
Handy.
He was dealing with some handsy women's tonight. So guys, we're going to be hosting a Deconstructing Zionism event for 3 hours, 4 panels, 45 minutes each. They're starting to come together. I have some very good confirmed people, some maybe people, but whatever we end up with will be extremely informative and very educational. I really need to, this might be the hill I die on. And I'm really like, I cannot. And I'm reading this book by one of our guests. His name is Rabbi Brant Rosen. And he wrote a book called Wrestling in Daylight. And it's really about his coming to realizations as being raised a Zionist and being a rabbi, that we're not necessarily right on that issue. And it's his sort of coming to terms with and becoming a supporter of Palestinian rights. And one of the phrases in his book was, "I just can't do that dance anymore." And that's where I am. That's where I'm like, I can't do the dance anymore. So I'm going to have to just own it and put it out there for what it is. And it is what it is. So I'm doing it educational.
There is no guarantee that Jen is going to run a second time. But if she does, the district lines are infinitely more favorable now than they were before, considering what the district used to be. And one of the biggest Zionist contingencies in the whole country lies in Aventura, Florida, and that is no longer in our district. But again,
but honestly, I feel personally somewhat guilty that I didn't do this sooner, and that I sort of towed the line as much as I did. Like, everyone has this moment on their own. Like Rabbi Rosen, his book, the first one came out in 2012, and he wrote it basically. It was after. Oh God, it was like after the second intifada and just all this stuff that was going on, Israel launching attacks on Gaza. And it's been a long time coming. And I can't do the dance anymore.
Again, if you can look at the bombing of children and just be able to look the other way, I don't know what to tell you.
It's just, I just can't anymore.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. I don't support ethnocracy. I just don't. It's not my thing. And if you want to support an ethno-state and an ethnocracy, okay. But we're going to at least look at all the same facts. And then if you still want to support an ethnocracy, that's fine. But it's not a democracy.
And remember,
you cannot claim it's a democracy.
And remember, the biggest reason why Debbie says what she says and does what she does is because she's just trying to hang on to power. That's all it is for her. Whether she believes what she believes or not, do I believe that Debbie is a Zionist? Yes, I do. But
for sure.
I definitely also believe that Debbie will say and do whatever she has to do to keep that seat.
Yeah, but she was raised probably how I was raised. Debbie's 5 years older than me. So she was probably raised by, the same post-Holocaust fear-based mentality that my grandparents had, and even my parents to some extent. And they didn't know better. We were taught it was a land with no people for a people with no land. We were taught that. We were almost like bred to know that, and everything was about Israel. But when you know better, you need to do better. And the problem with people like her, with Debbie and other people like that, is now we have available information very easily, readily at our fingertips, right? Like, we can find out the truth. There is no excuse to not know about the Nakba. And there's no excuse for that. And yet most of the Jewish people I know have never heard of it. They've never heard of it. In fact, they celebrate May 14th as Israel's Independence Day. They celebrate that. That's a holiday. That's a big Jewish holiday, a big celebration. And for Palestinian people, it represents the Nakba, which translates to the catastrophe, which was the worst thing that ever happened to them, when 750,000 Palestinians were killed and forcibly evacuated. And these are facts that Jews in Western culture, such as myself, when I was growing up, we were never taught that. And I would love to believe that if we were taught that, and if my grandparents were taught that maybe they wouldn't get so behind the Zionism movement. But they weren't taught that. They just thought there was nobody there and that we could just have that because that's where our forefathers were from. Newsflash, everybody's forefathers come from the exact same place, kind of somewhere, Africa, Tigris, Euphrates. We all took that in history class. All of our people came from there, not just Jewish people, all people. So I just, this very well might end up being the hill I die on, but it's so important to me. And I'm not going to just not make a deal of this anymore. I can't. So that's where I am. And I definitely am at risk of losing family. So
yeah, you definitely have at least one family member that is probably going to say that you can go kick rocks.
Well, you do. I have a family member that is like partially built that Chabad right here on Nob Hill. Oh no, this is not, but I just, good thing I'm sort of reclusive and I don't need a lot of people around me because this is definitely going to rub people the wrong way. But yeah, it is what it is, people.
Thank you, Kayla. And yes, we will absolutely have Angelica back on the podcast. Takes AIPAC and developer money, and there's a documentary covering some Me Too allegations coming out. Yeah, the sad truth is that the AIPAC and developer money means less in the so-called media and voters' eyes than it does the fact that he may have sexually assaulted a minor, which is serious business.
Both things can bother me at the same time.
Yes.
I can simultaneously bother that he's a pederast and an AIPAC money
It's not necessarily the case with everyone, but
because I can be annoyed by both things.
I'm equally annoyed. I'm an equal opportunist, annoyed person when it comes to
I am so done with AIPAC and the Democratic majority for Israel. I am just done with them.
But again, your attitude is let's just hit them head on. Let's just take them on.
I'm not waiting for them to come for me.
We're going to have to deal with them in some capacity.
Yeah. They're going to come for me one way or the other. And I'm not going to let them create the narrative. I'm creating the narrative. I'm separating Judaism from Zionism. They're not the same thing. And you know what? As someone who's actually proud to be a Jew, Judaism existed long before Zionism and it'll exist long after it. And I am done with those things being conflated.
Well, I think more than anything else, if anyone is considering coming on and watching the Deconstructing Zionism live stream, the biggest reason to come on and watch it is to learn the actual history of how this started and how the Holocaust became the opening, if you will, for them to seize the moment, so to speak.
That's when there's, well, it's true. I mean, people don't realize that. There's definitely this sort of idea, and it's purposeful. This is purposeful propaganda that basically ties the state of Israel to the Holocaust because it plays on sympathy. Look, people, we know better. We know how we're marketed to. We know how we're propagandized. The Zionists completely capitalized on rational fear from Holocaust survivors. Again, rational fear. These were people that were destroyed and had nowhere to go. That's all true. But they were the victims. They were used by Zionists to basically sign on to what otherwise wasn't going to work. They weren't going to get, the Zionist movement started long before the Holocaust. And people, we're going to talk all about this, but it
started during the time of Lincoln.
It started a long time ago. And they wanted to create that. And when they saw all this tragedy and all the persecuted Jews that had nowhere to go, they seized it as an opportunity to push through an agenda that they'd been trying to push through for a long time. And they have now purposefully conflated those two things so that if you speak out against Zionism, you're an anti-Semite. That's unacceptable. That's not true. We reject that entirely. I am not going to accept that. There is nothing that is the same between Judaism and Zionism. They're not the same thing. And I'm not going to accept that. So I'm done. Anyway, I've said my piece for tonight.
So I think we've got, I'm not sure exactly.
I've been to Israel, guys.
On Monday.
I've been to Tel Aviv. Israel's beautiful. And I have a lot of issues like personal. This has been very hard for me. Like I say these things matter of fact, but the reality is I love Israel, like the state, like the place, the actual place, the land, the people, not the geopolitical thing, right? And I've been there and it's so spiritual. And I mean, for everyone, like it really does feel like the cradle of civilization, which is something that should be for everyone. And I was there as a typical, with Alexander Muss High School in Israel, the typical North Miami Beach Jew, Zionist raised. We're in Israel. That's what we're doing. We're supporting it. We're going to make Aliyah. We're planting trees. It's all about that. And we were so brainwashed and so propagandized for so long. And I have a lot of regret about that, but I didn't know. I really didn't know. And it wasn't like now where information is so easily available that you can just look it up. And it's not okay. And I have to own that. And I loved being there, but now in retrospect, it's so tainted for me because I feel like, okay, yeah, I loved being there, but now I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, I was there as a Jewish person from this country who, by the way, I can get Israeli citizenship tomorrow. I can move there. And just become a citizen and get all privileges of citizenship. But the people that have been living there for their whole lives might not be afforded that right. And now as somebody at my age, I look back on, oh my God, I went there as this 16-year-old total like jappy princess from North Miami Beach with this whole group of girls. Like we think somehow we're entitled to Israel. And I'm just,
you're not entitled.
And
to
by
anything.
the way, let me say this. I never, ever was derogatory or thought anything about any other peoples. We didn't know. It wasn't like I thought once I started knowing there were actually other people, that's when I started to change. So it wasn't like I ever felt superior I just didn't know. And now that I know that those people have always been there, it's like, I'm mortified. It's like going into someone's house and hanging out and partying there and whatever, and thinking nobody's home. And then you realize there's people in the house.
Yeah.
Like, it's very disconcerting to me.
Well, before we go, we obviously have to inform you all, of course, that our channel does not come without its ask. And that, of course, is for patreon.com/generational change. If you are so inclined, for as little as $5 a month, you can become a patron of our wonderful channel. As you can see, we are doing really great content. It was another great show tonight, a lot of informative stuff. And if you are so inclined to contribute, as our wonderful supporters, a handful of them tonight were willing to do so,
it's very appreciated.
You can really help us with our local candidates, with causes, with all the wonderful things that we are fighting for as of today. And so please go to patreon.com/generational change. For $10 a month, we will get you.
You get the Lulu sticker, okay? Because there is the Lulu sticker. And you will get my little Mansion 2024, Mansion Parliamentarian for 2024. Honestly, this ticket would have a better shot against DeSantis than anyone else I'm looking at right now. So I don't know what else they've got going, but this might be the best call. Just saying.
Mr. Coleman will definitely, that's what we call him, Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Coleman.
And then if you are really generous and inclined to do $25 a month, Patreon.
And you will get the Generational Change signature jersey, which normally one of us is wearing it, which we are not right now, but we have the signature Generational Change jersey. They're really cute. They say, "Here comes the sun" on the front, and on the back has Generational Change.
Yes, TM, it is a joke bumper sticker. We do not know for sure that Mansion and Parliamentarian.
First of all, her name isn't Parliamentarian. But I just figured, since these are the people that have strong-armed Joe Biden, she's why we can't get a $15 minimum wage. Apparently, it's all because of her. That's some power, the parliamentarian. And Manchin holds up everything. So I just figure, let's vote for the people that have the real power. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
And once again, if you do not want to put your credit card on file and have it continued to be charged, because you really don't want to be a patron, you can go to Cash App $GenChange if you would like to make a direct contribution to our show. Any amount is appreciated. Any amount makes a difference. If I remember correctly, I do believe that we got contribution in the past from TM herself on Cash App. So
we do. We get the Cash Apps. They all go right into GenCore, which is our nonprofit. I
definitely,
and other than the occasional fairy hair.
Yes. Well, TM, I definitely agree that there is a high likelihood that if the Democrats do take more of the Senate in the midterms, which I think is definitely more likely than them doing anything with the House. I think they're going to lose the House, but I can see the case where they could expand the Senate depending on what happens with Fetterman in Pennsylvania and Barnes in Wisconsin. I think those are the most likely. And of course, the Dems would also need to hold Warnock in Georgia and Kelly in Arizona. Will all those things
possible?
happen? It's possible. Let's put it this way, though. If that were to happen, is it possible that Sinema defects to the GOP? Yes, absolutely. It's possible.
And more importantly, does anyone care?
Yeah.
Are you going to miss her? I don't think she's interested in getting reelected.
Love you, TM. That really means a lot.
I don't think that Sinema cares about being reelected.
Paul, I think that that's the best case scenario for the Democrats at this point. I think that's if you're looking for what you can hope is the best scenario in this current circumstance.
He's saying it's going to be a
52-48 Dem in the Senate is the best you're going to get.
That's
the best you're going to get.
And I do. Well, one of the things that Steve said in the beginning is what I've been saying all along. Any Democrat that does decently with their numbers, I do believe is tied to Roe versus Wade. However close Charlie Crist does get to Ron DeSantis, however close he even gets, is only going to be because of Roe versus Wade. That's all they have. That's their chance.
That is because that is what they are choosing to run on.
Look, they don't want to give us actual things.
Correct, because again, it's not about changing the economic infrastructure of the country. At least in its current incarnation, we don't have a big enough people movement in the country in order to do that, which is what we are working on. And of course, when we're talking about building that economic change, we are huge advocates for small business. It goes without saying that we really want to emphasize that with our new Patreon, which is patrons who are small business contributors, or in this case, as Jen likes to say, small business neighbors.
And they're small business neighbors because our little icon is Mr. Rogers for that category. I had to come up with like a fourth muse that really is important to me. And really, it would have been Dolly, except for I didn't really see how that would at all tie to small business, really. So I at least thought with Mr. Rogers, I could call them small business neighbors.
Well, Apex Insurance Agency in Delray Beach, which covers home, auto, and life insurance, is a local insurance company that could really be of great benefit, especially for many Floridians right now who may have suffered serious losses regarding Hurricane Ian. The big box companies are not looking out for your best interests, but the small business companies certainly are.
You know what they do? One of the things they do that people don't realize that you get because we use a local people, my husband and I, we use local company, and they actually will go out of their way to let you know when there's a better deal. Like if you could get a better rate.
Yeah.
And you don't get that like if you just sort of do it. I don't think if you
that's
just do
real
it
old school, caring about your community and what's in the best interest of the people.
They have like actual clients and stuff. Yeah.
So as you guys can see, it is scrolling Apex Insurance Agency, and they are based in Delray Beach. Highly recommend checking them out, especially for any of you Floridians.
South Florida.
Who knows? They might be licensed in multiple states. Don't know.
Yeah, but if you're somewhere else, you should go to your other people.
That's probably true. I would be inclined.
I mean, you know,
I'm trying to do the best I can to.
But no, but it's South Florida. If you're in the Tri-County area and you need local, that's local. Like local. If you're within Tri-County, it's local. Your insurance doesn't need to be like in your actual, like on your block, but this is local for South Florida. And I think it's really good to have local.
So with that said, we really appreciate you guys. Hope you enjoyed the show this evening. I know a lot of you did. A lot of you have really stuck with us for the full hour and 45 that we have gone.
I mean, we always lose people once Steve leaves, and I get that, but a lot of people stayed and were here when we were talking to Odessa, which I really appreciate because she definitely needs the boost. I don't know like what the odds are there with that split. You know, but I like her. She's freaking great.
No, she is great. And that is the type of person who, even if she doesn't win, is definitely changing the cultural thought process when it comes to politics.
She's she's like, you know what? She reminds me of like Marcel in that, but a lot, not angry.
Yeah. I'm sure.
But she's very like real and from the people.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that I think will definitely, we have had climate experts, and we'll have. That's definitely a good idea, TM. I think we can definitely find another person or a.
We have we've had a few good, but you mean to specifically talk about the policy that we just had, like the new changes that were made and what difference it'll make, and we can do that.
Yeah, great idea. All right, guys, thank you so much for obviously tuning in this evening. Really appreciate your wonderful support. Obviously, you know the big event that's coming up the following Saturday. But in the meantime, be well. We'll see you Monday.